So, Job was blessed by God. And from what we understand, didn't do anything wrong to attract what happened with Job. Didn't do anything wrong. Some people will take the whole book of Job and talk about how Job actually had some pride over his perfect adherence to God's principles, and that maybe that was why things happened that way. But if you read the first couple of chapters in Job, we don't see that in black and white. We see that the enemy, Satan, goes to God and says, look, I found a perfect person. And hey, God, the reason he's perfect is because you've blessed him so much. And God, I challenge you, if you'll take away all his blessing, he'll curse you. And so God takes up the challenge. God says, well, fine. And I think there were 2 or 3 stages. First thing he was allowed to do was take everything away from him, right? And then I think the second thing was he could take all his friends away. And then the third thing, he could even take his health away. And he gave him this itchy leprosy kind of thing, and he was scratching himself, and he's probably bleeding all over the place. God basically, at the end of the third request, told Satan, pretty much, you can do anything you want to Job, but you can't take his life. And so Satan pretty much did anything he could to Job without taking his life. And then at the end, Job has this time as his friends really don't act like friends, and they don't understand. I don't think they set out to be bad. They didn't understand. Here's the thing. When I'm going through something, people don't understand what I'm going through. And when you're going through something, people don't understand what you're going through. And when different people, my wife going through something, I don't understand exactly what she's going through. She doesn't understand exactly what I'm going through. You don't understand what I'm going through. I don't understand what we're all in this position, right? So these friends of Job, they meant well. Like, they were trying to help Job out. They're like, look, Job, you were all blessed, and you used to bring us to your parties and used to give us gifts. And we'd like for you to get back in the good graces of God so you can give us gifts again, right? Can you imagine what they were thinking? They were like, wow, we used to come to your mansion for these big parties, and now we're kind of sitting here in this trash heap, and you're rubbing yourself with clay pieces, and you got sackcloth on you. And come on, Job, you got to pick yourself up, Job. And so they're really trying to help him out. They're saying, look, Job, you got to look back in your life. Where did you sin? What did you do wrong? How did you bring this on yourself? Right? That's what the friends were doing. And so finally, God kind of gets fed up with it. And Job was kind of maybe going downhill a little bit, because Job was kind of getting frustrated with these friends, right? And finally, God comes out of, I don't know if this is chapter 37, 38. God comes kind of out, and he just starts pouring it out, right? He says, wait a second, Job. Where were you when I created the world? Where were you when I created the behemoths? Where were you where were you? Where were you? Where were you? There's like two chapters of this, okay? Really putting everybody in their place. And if I remember correctly, God puts the friends in their place too, but I don't think it's as much as kind of putting Job almost getting frustrated there with God kind of at the end. Okay. And finally, and I don't remember I don't have it in front of me, if Job offered or God commanded that Job pray for his friends, that he set up a sacrifice and he prayed for his friends. And that's pretty tough. You've lost everything. You know how it is to lose everything. You've lost everything, and your friends aren't supporting you at all. So you've lost everything. Your friends aren't supporting you. They're tearing you up. Now you just got torn up by God. Okay. You really want to just go be by yourself. You really want to cause havoc. You really don't want anything nice to do with anybody. And the next thing God wants you to do is pray for these friends. And so Job does it. He makes this sacrifice, and he prays for his friends, and he prays that they would have blessing, and he prays that they would be forgiven. And then at that point, God comes back and he says, and I think there was probably more to this than just this phrase, but the word says, and God, because Job prayed for his friends, God gave him everything back plus double. And so, Job admitted that everything he had came from God. And he admitted this, I don't know, chapter 6, chapter 7. He admits this when he's arguing with his wife a little bit. And I think that she'd said, just curse God and God die, be done with it. And he basically says, look, God gave me everything. He's got the right to take it all away. Naked we come out of the womb, and naked can we go back to the earth. And I've had everything, and I've had a good life, and now God's taken it away, and he's God, right? And then at the very end, when the blessing comes back, it doesn't come back because of anything that Job does. It comes back because God is the one that holds the blessing. God is the one that holds the blessing. And he held the blessing for David, and he held the blessing for Joseph, and he held the blessing for Jehoshaphat, and he held the blessing for Job. And I want to speak this into you. God's holding the blessing for you. All right, if you're going through a Job moment right now, God's holding the blessing for you. Now, we don't know what's going to turn things. It may just be God's not ready yet. Maybe Job wasn't ready yet. Maybe we have to learn something. Maybe just like, just like Jesus said about not raising Lazarus from the dead soon enough, that he had to be basically fully dead so that you would really believe. And sometimes maybe our dreams have to be fully dead before God can birth something. Maybe we have to be fully finished with whatever the past is before God, who knows? And I think for every single person, it's different. That's why I think that when we make these patterns, well, Job did this. And so, if I just pray for my friends, I'll have double. That totally gets away from the spirit of everything. I think God does something for us each individually based on where we're at. And that was what Job needed right there. And so I just want to speak into you. Hang in there with God. You may be doing everything right, but he's just not ready to give that blessing back. And he wants you to remain strong. He wants you to grow. Think about this. You've been down in times past in your life. There's been sickness in your life. There's been despair in your life. You've had problems in your life. You've had business failures in your life. You've had bad times in your life. And think now about the times of growth that you've had in your life. When did that growth usually occur? Think about it. It almost always occurred during or shortly after you had some tremendous, horrible thing occur. Whether it was a death, or whether it was a loss, or whether it was great sickness, or whether it was business loss, or whether it was something someone did to you, or whether it was a mistake that you made, the weathering that you went through was part of your process so that you could emerge and grow. Imagine if all God's doing with you right now where you're at. Imagine if all God's doing with me right now where I'm at is growing me into the person I have to be able to accept the next level of blessing. Because sometimes we're not big enough to contain the next level of blessing. So often we receive whatever blessing we're able to contain. One more story, and then we'll wrap up. You recall when the widow lady went to Elijah, and she needed to take care of herself for the rest of her life. And Elijah said, well, go get all of the jars that you can and take the oil that you have and just pour it out until all the jars are full. And she just kept pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring. But as soon as they come up with the last jar, the oil stopped pouring. And there's a couple of ways we can look at this. One is, what if they'd have worked harder at getting jars? What if they'd have gotten 5 times more jars? Would the oil have kept pouring? I think so. Here's the thing. God can't pour more into you than you're capable of receiving. And at your last point of blessing, you may have tapped out your ability to do anything more. So your old business model might have been tapped out. It was impossible for you to grow. And sometimes you can't grow by adding 10% to your current business model. Sometimes a door has to be shut behind you so that your current business model no longer works, and you're forced to up level and build something that has more capacity. And obviously, I can't speak to any one person here, but possibly I could, but I'm not going to right now. I believe that for many of you, if not all of you, you're listening, you're rapt, you're hearing it. Something inside of your belly, this is resonating with, right? And here's the thing, God may simply be preparing you, growing your vessel so that you can accept more blessing into that vessel. And with that said, let's go ahead and wrap up. And I seriously want to encourage you to just hang in there. Okay, do things right, stay right, work hard, stay in the word, keep following him, but do not give up. I believe that blessing is right around the corner.